They're coming for RPGs now. Censorship has gotten out of control in gaming because this week every single adult game on itch.io, one of the biggest video gaming and role-playing game marketplaces, has been shadow banned on the platform. Every single one. We're talking about hundreds to thousands of games that have now totally been removed. As itch.io say here in their statement, they have de-indexed every single adult game from their browser and search pages, meaning that they are effectively shadow banned and can no longer be found because, quote, itch has come under scrutiny from our payment processors regarding the nature of some content hosted on itch.io. Due to a game titled No Mercy, temporarily available on itch.io before being banned back in April, the organization Collective Shout launched a campaign against Steam and itch.io directing concerns to our payment processors about the nature of certain content found on both platforms. We must prioritize our relationship with our payment partners and take immediate steps towards compliance. Now, this follows a massive campaign that was originally being waged against the video game community, but has now spilled out and is coming for RPGs and analog games as well. You might have seen last week that Valve, the operators of Steam, the extremely popular hub of all the video games in the world, except the very best one ever made, which obviously is Baldi's, they totally lost control of their own platform, as they were forced to take down all their adult and not safe for work games from their online marketplace. Now, at the time, people were pretty happy about that development because the content that was originally targeted for censorship was mainly weird incest games and rape games as well, like really extreme content. So there was a lot of cheering when those games got taken down. Not by me though, because as a Crusader Kings fan, my main fetishes are rape and incest, especially when combined. But everyone else, I'm sure they were happy enough with the removal of some extremely crude video games. But now, shocker of shocker, this censorship has expanded. Now it has come to encompass everything that is adult. All adult games are now being banned, and the bans are happening to video games, RPGs, and more on all platforms on the internet. Nowhere is safe. As D&D fans will probably recognize, we have returned to the satanic panic, but like a million times worse. Now, the people behind this are a group called Collective Shout. They describe themselves as anti-pornography, but what they really mean is that they are anti-not safe for work, anti-adult content online, full stop. They are a pretty small, extreme Australian pressure group, but they have managed to convince both Visa and MasterCard to no longer process payments on platforms that Collective Shout, as a pressure group, disagree with, which is insane and extremely dangerous to free expression online and the integrity of our games, because Visa and MasterCard are massive payment processors. In fact, they're really the only payment processors in town. If you don't have their support and infrastructure and you're selling something online, well, I got news, buddy. You're not selling something online because you cannot process payments. So if Visa and MasterCard decide to no longer support your platform, you are doomed as a business. And every single store and marketplace of games, both analog like Dungeons and Dragons or digital like Elf Breeding Farm, know that. And thus, within only a few days of Collective Shout managing to convince Visa and MasterCard to take a draconian stance against adult content in gaming, and new rules changes around adult content went into effect, several hundred games were removed from Steam. But that wasn't all, because now every single website that takes any payments using Visa or MasterCard are being impacted too. We've seen that adult sites like Fansly have banned hypnosis, role-playing as an animal, VTubers, and even the terms bunny girls or cat girls, and even amateur wrestling, presumably because it might be a depiction of violence. Likewise, Japanese Suruga Ya Comics retailer closed down their entire website to censor their content. Manga Library Z has now shut down after years of service because Visa shut down their payments even after they tried working with Visa directly to remove manga containing certain words. And there are tons more examples. Many websites that host video content, books, RPGs, video games, and more are losing content or being shut down entirely. And now itch.io are following suit. Just the other day, they took down every single adult game on their entire store. Hundreds of thousands of TTRPGs and video games, all delisted, all shadow banned on their platform. And if those games want to return, they're gonna have to do an audit. They'll have to follow the rules put in place by Visa and MasterCard. And really, those rules have been informed by the Puritan group Collective Shout. And this is just the beginning. All the other RPGs and gaming websites will be affected as well. And it's not going to stop at adult content either, because Collective Shout are a tiny group and yet have managed to take down adult content. And there will be all sorts of other groups out there taking notes and preparing to take down stuff that they don't like as pressure groups. Next, there will be LGBTQ content, it will be violent content, it will be political discussion, as video game director Yoko Taro wrote recently. In fact, N-World have just reported that itch.io have already taken down LGBT games, censoring games that have the word trans in them, because after all, these are all adult themes according to Visa and MasterCard. Now, I never planned on being the Gooner champion, but here we are, I guess. It was sort of inevitable, but I must warn, Collective Shout and their anti-adult crusade is just the beginning. Visa and MasterCard have clearly demonstrated their capacity to pressure marketplaces, stores and sellers online and force them to restrict content. But they have also demonstrated their own pliability to focused pressure, and that opens a terrifying Pandora's box for the future of the internet and the hobbies that we love and hold dear. So much more LGBT stuff will be removed, more violent content will be removed, and hell, maybe we'll even see the return of blasphemy and depictions of Satan being banned next. It sounds ridiculous, but that looks to be where we're going. And then we just won't have a Dungeons and Dragons anymore that isn't shit. Now, you might be wondering, how did this tiny little group called Collective Shout manage to twist MasterCard and Visa round their fingers to hobble massive industries like the video games industry and the, okay, comparatively much smaller TTRPG industry? Well, the answer is that they didn't do it alone. This has not come from nowhere. It's just one part of a larger war to censor the entire internet, a war that has been raging for decades and threatens everyone's freedom of expression and has ties to many puritanical groups. I'm not kidding, this really is the Satanic Panic all over again. It is a return to the same censorship impulses of the 1980s and 1990s. And Visa and MasterCard have been looking for an excuse to implement draconian censorship policies on the internet for a while now, and historically, they have gone after porn websites and they have been involved in internet censorship for years. This is just the latest in what is a new extreme form of that. And they've gone totally mask off, frankly, and decided to become the moral arbiters of what is correct and good and pure and morally correct on the internet. And honestly, that is unacceptable. They shouldn't be able to tell people what they can spend their money on. If I want to commission a picture of, oh, I don't know, just straight off the top of my head here, maybe a picture of someone drinking Sonic the Hedgehog's blue breast milk, then I should be allowed to do that, regardless of judgment. There's no laws against that. And yes, Visa and MasterCard are payment processors, but payment processors should be a neutral party to payments, following the laws of the land, and they shouldn't be allowed to use their monopoly to enforce puritanical standards on the rest of us, whether they've gotten it from pressure groups or just decided upon these puritanical standards themselves. Because bear in mind, none of the content, none of it that has been taken down is illegal. It is all entirely compliant with the legal rules as set out in our respective countries. But no, Visa and MasterCard and Collective Shout, they believe that they can just ignore what is legal in your country, in your laws, and decide for themselves what you should be allowed to spend your money on. Don't you just love it when a banker gets to decide what's right and wrong? They're definitely a moral authority. You gotta love bankers. They've never been incorrect before, or made bad decisions, or been involved in things like, I don't know, sex scandals. Famously, very clean guys. And make no mistake, this is an apocalyptic level threat to the games industry, both analog and digital. This does not end with adult content. All our games are under threat. It's a very thin wedge that we stand at. And again, it's going to be LGBT, violence, and political content banned next. And itch.io, and Steam, and Hasbro, and DriveThru RPG, none of them will stand up against Visa and MasterCard. MasterCard, because to do so is commercial suicide. So all these platforms will simply censor themselves to the strictest extent in order to avoid trouble. And this is the most insidious kind of censorship because it's invisible, it's subversive, and it will be impossible to stop. And look, I don't want to be that guy, but this is how the Nazis censored things. This isn't a meme. This is actually the 1930s Nazi playbook. You see, Nazis rarely had to ban foreign content like movies from America because American movie studios would preempt potential bans in Germany by changing what their movies and stories would be about to be in line with Nazi sensibilities. They would remove scenes that they thought the Nazi censorship boards wouldn't like to avoid any trouble. And we're going to see the exact same thing happen in gaming next. Because, for example, in the past, Collective Shout have gone after video games like Detroit Become Human for depicting what they call child abuse. Now, bear in mind, this is a video game where a mother and child do indeed suffer domestic violence within the context of the story. But Collective Shout want any depiction of domestic violence banned, regardless of any nuance or the context of the story itself. But taking such depictions like that out of their content and issuing blanket bans will be terrible for our games. I mean, even in Detroit Become Human, the child abuse in the story is bad, and in the context of the story is bad. It's not glorified. It's written to generate sympathy for the victims and tell a story about emancipation. It's an empowering tale. But Collective Shout don't care about that. They don't want to understand the context of things. They just want to ban it. They do not care. Likewise, Collective Shout have gone after video games like Grand Theft Auto for depicting women as playthings. But the response of studios and stores to these new bans and rules will be simply the same response of American movie studios in the 1930s to Nazi censorship. They will simply remove the potentially censorious elements from the content at all. Because why take the risk? And likewise, RPGs are not immune from this. Even TTRPGs, we're gonna lose a whole lot of stuff here. We're gonna lose all our adult games like, oh, I don't know, Call of Cthulhu, Delta Green, World of Darkness, Exalted, Thirsty Sword Lesbians, Eat the Reich, hell, Dungeons and Dragons, Pathfinder. These games won't be safe either, and tons more. The entire hobby. All these games depict groups in nuanced lights. They depict abuse. They depict violence. They depict adult themes because they're games for adults. Hell, we'll even lose baldies because a central theme of that game is the breeding of little bald men. But no, in this new landscape that we're entering, we're going to see the removal of deep themes, of women from our games, of depictions of demons, of tragic stories of emancipation, of breeding bald men. Because that's what developers will do. It's what stores will demand because they'll want to play it safe. They'll want to play it safe and not risk potentially losing everything by not complying with draconian policies of Visa, MasterCard, and pressure groups like Collective Shout. And who knows who else after? If Visa and MasterCard will bow down to a tiny group like Collective Shout now, who will they obey after? The evangelicals? The Dutch? Your dad? This is so perverse, and it prevents and limits how stories are told and what artists can do, and the scope of the tales that we can tell at our table. No, I'm against censorship, full stop. I'm for artists, even if I'm not a big fan of all the content out there. Believe me, there's some things out there that I really have rather never seen. But this has become really acute for me because I woke up a few days ago to discover that the occupying UK government that I live under has now banned all 18 plus content on the internet, even for adults. And the only way to get past this filter is to show a picture of your ID to an online company that has in the past sold data to third parties and will use AI to process your information. And considering the amount of data breaches that I have seen in my own lifetime, it's a lot? No, I'm never giving that shit to anybody. Do not put me on the list. I don't want to be put on your list. The only list I want to be put on is the one to see a doctor, but that's the only one they refuse to put me on. And I guess this is now the world we're living in. Like right now, itch.io has taken down every single adult game on their website, and that's insane. This is a major crisis. It goes way beyond TTRPGs. It goes way beyond video games. This goes beyond anything else. So I have linked to websites below, petitions, where you can try try and help fight that. And if you want to keep up to date with this, please subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support my work here covering nerd and RPG news, and now apparently championing all porn as a very anti-censorship platform, I guess, even for gooning, whatever that is, please check out my Patreon too. It's only thanks to your supports I can do this. I don't get a lot of ads. Thanks so much, especially to CryptoKev, and I'll catch you all next time. Bye-bye.